Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tala, and I'm an SSI Science Communication intern this summer. This is our second episode of our Live with the SSI Intern series, where we're going to interview members of our SSI cohort. So, to provide a bit of background for those of you that don't know, SSI stands for Systematics Institute, and this REU, or Research Experience for Undergrads, is funded by the National Science Foundation. With the exception of myself and Amy, the other SciComm intern, all of our peers are working with a curator or curator adjacent staff member here at the California Academy of Sciences. So please feel free to leave comments or questions in the chat below, and we will get to them as the discussion unfolds. Without further ado, we are very excited to introduce you all to our guest, Nelly Batista. So, Nelly, thank you for being here today with us. Would you like to share some information about yourself, like your hometown, pronouns, home institution, and anything else you would like the audience to know?
Of course. Thank you for having me, Tala. So I am currently going to school in Sacramento, California. I am a community college student at American River College. Um, I'm doing the prereqs at the moment to transfer to the university of my choice. A little bit about me, I'm currently studying biology and I am going to be transferring with ecology and evolution to continue doing the research that I am working on at the moment.
Awesome, thank you for that. So, our first question, just off the bat, is how would you explain your summer research project to a fifth grader?
Okay, thank you, Tala. So I would begin by explaining a little bit of what I'm working with corals this summer. So what corals are, correct? So corals might look like a simple like rock, a very colorful, pretty rock, but they're actually living animals. The way that they are alive is kind of through a process called symbiosis, which means that let's say, for example, corals and algae, they have a symbiosis relationship. So we could explain it as like roommates. So they are very good roommates. Um, Corals allow algae to live with them, and they provide them with a home and everything. And the algae is responsible for every other chore, which is like cleaning, cooking, feeding the coral. Um, Also giving them all of these beautiful colors that you can see them in. So that's a little bit about like the relationship. It's both beneficial for both of them. So kind of like how we have friends and our relationships are also beneficial. You would consider that a symbiosis relationship. So a little bit about corals. Corals are very, very important. A little they provide us with, first of all, I'm sure a lot of you have watched the movie Finding Nemo, and you can realize how Nemo and the rest of his friends actually live in the coral reef. So in real life, that's a little bit of how it looks. There's a ton of different marine species living there. It's the home to plenty of animals, of fish, of just every sort of marine animal you can imagine. Um, they are also very important not only to marine life, but also to us. They provide us with protection. So for all the people that live closer to like the ocean or so, the corals provide kind of like create like a natural shield for us. So in case of like any hurricane or natural disaster, they are protecting us so that our homes, all the people that live there, the plants, the animals, they are not being as affected by natural disasters. So they protect us, therefore we should protect them too. Another thing about corals, so a little bit of it's very important to emphasize that even though corals are have all of these benefits, they are also greatly endangered at the moment due to global warming, which some of you might know. It's when the planet Earth overheats. Therefore, our oceans heat as well. A lot of our corals are used to living in colder and cooler waters, but due to, as I mentioned, global warming, um, all their homes are getting like much more hotter, and this is like stressing the corals out. When corals are stressed, they don't want to have friends, they don't want to have roommates, they kick everything out. So when they don't have any roommate to cook for them, unfortunately, they starve and a lot of them do die. Um, But a great part of my research project is I'm going to be looking at a lot of different photos of corals, and seeing kind of how they look, what their traits are, because just like humans, corals also are very unique and different, and they all have their own history. Some of these corals also have preferences. As I mentioned, some of them prefer to live in warmer areas, cooler areas. Most of them prefer cooler areas, depends. Um, but but a lot of these corals also really, really do not like hot water. And this is what is unfortunately causing them to die. But what I will be looking in my project is I'm going to be looking at all of these corals, seeing how they differ. Maybe some of them prefer certain environments, such as warmer water. So by knowing, being able to identify and see how they look, we're able to know what corals might have a higher chance of surviving during global warming. And this will also provide us with more insight. So once we're able to identify which are the corals that we can help, we will also be able to know what are like some of the extra resources that we can provide to continue their conservation. So that's a little bit about my project.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you so much for the in-depth explanation. I love how you tell the fifth graders that corals are animals, because I think if I never knew corals were animals until I was a little older or maybe around that age. So it's like that kind of would probably blow their mind. And also how you use like the roommate analogy and the Finding Nemo analogy. So thank you so much. I really loved listening to you explain that. So our next question is, what did you think research was before you started this internship, or any other research experience you may have had in the past?
So before any research experience I have had, a great part of my deal of research was very academic based. So what they had kind of like taught me in school, which was like mostly like doing research papers, like reading a lot, and kind of just summarizing that, not really like hands-on. Um, Being in this internship has definitely made me realize that research is more, yes, it does involve a lot of reading because we constantly have to update ourselves on um, just anything that is going on around the world. But it also involves collecting data. It also involves going out to the field, lab work, collecting specimens, networking, because you also want to make sure that other people are contributing to your research, maybe giving you some insights. And it also provides, and also a lot of communication is involved, something that I was a little bit unaware of. So being able to not only know how to research your subject, but also how to explain it to other people. Because at the end of the day, a great part of why we're doing research is because we want to answer questions for others and help out as well. So it's definitely much more hands-on and much more fun than I had been exposed to in the academic system. So I am definitely grateful for this experience and being able to get the full scientist perspective of research.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you talk about that. It's more than just the research. It's like networking, it's communication, especially the communication part. I think some people tend to forget. And also, I just noticed, but I love, do you have I love corals in the back written? I feel very on
I
brand. I love
do.
that.
Exactly. We do love corals.
We love corals, yes. So our next question is, do you feel like a scientist, or like what does a scientist, being a scientist, mean to you?
Thank you. So I do feel like a scientist, especially now that I am involved in my research. I believe that being a scientist is being able to explore the world around you with a curious mind, and also finding like the why of how things happened. Um, so having like the scientific lens to be able to just find different things that are I'm so sorry that are occurring, and answering questions that are important, because a lot of these issues have not really been addressed before. So as scientists, we are discovering new things, and we're also answering questions that are not only important but fundamental fundamental for other people to know as well in order to take care of ourselves, take care of our planet, our animals. So being able to find the why of things, and just sharing that with the world, I believe. So yes, I do feel like a scientist, and I believe, yeah, just having a curious mind and a different perspective definitely does help.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's a big part of so many. I think everyone in our internship, but also every other scientist I've met, have a very curious nature. Has that curiosity? Did you see it when you were younger? Was it developed, or have you just always been curious about the world?
That's a very good question. So yes, I think I've always been connected to nature and different aspects. Ever since I was a child, I used to like to go out around and collect like little ladybugs or little butterflies. I used to have like a little box where I would like go out and collect them, just look at them, and then later I would release them. So I guess my biologist perspective arrived from a very young age. It's it's really nice that I'm able to continue doing that. Kind of like gives me like my inner child, um, a little bit more perspective and continue doing what I like and also getting more insight on it. So yeah, I definitely do think it's always been something that I've been interested in, and I'm glad to still be in this field.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I know that we've talked about this a little, but how does your personal identity inform your science? We've talked about curiosity, but what about like how you personally identify yourself, whether that's culturally or otherwise?
Thank you, Tala. So I actually grew up a great part of my life in Mexico. Mexico, I was very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of biodiversity and wildlife and a lot of oceans as well. So I do remember, like as a child, going on these vacations, being very surrounded by wildlife. I would say, it was a very nice childhood. And I would like also the future generations to be able to live the same experiences as I did, and also be able to like be surrounded by wildlife, so they can continue to be curious about them, learn about them, because we can learn a lot of our surroundings, of nature, and just anything. Um, so a great part of why I am currently doing what I am doing is because I believe conservation is very important, not only for us to be able to enjoy them currently, but also for the future generations to come. I think it's only fair for them to also be exposed to the same nature and to the same beauties that we were growing up. So um, I hope that my job and my ideals on being fair to other people and considering also um, my own views about it will also like impact them as well, and the work that I'm doing will also allow them to get more insight on what I was able to get at a moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, I guess like since you grew up in Mexico and you said you grew up very close to the ocean, did you have exposure to seeing coral reefs a lot? The is that part of your love and interest for them, or did that kind of come later?
Thank you. So I actually don't remember seeing coral reefs when I was younger in the ocean. That actually happened like this December. As a coincidence, I was actually writing my essays, trying to apply to this program. So I did go to a beach in Baja California with my family, and it was a beautiful island that we were able to go. The water was very beautiful, but I did realize that with the ocean waves, um, they were like pulling out these white rocks that were like bleached. And seeing them closer, I realized that they were corals, and they were all dead and all bleached. So that kind of was one of the things that shifted. I guess it also motivated me a little bit more when writing my essays, because I was able to get a little bit more insight. And I guess to a certain perspective, I'm glad I saw it more as an adult, because I am more aware of the issue and I'm able to do some research on it and see what I can do as the upcoming scientist. As opposite as I would have seen that as a child, I would have probably just thought it was maybe like a regular rock or so. Um, so I was recently exposed to this phenomenon. um, but it did give me a different perspective on like, wow, like these oceans are so beautiful. Maybe at some point they're very surrounded by a lot of diversity within marine animals or so, and now they're all just dying, and I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to see them alive. So I believe there's still hope. I believe we can still do something for them. So a great part of what I am doing is to um, just avoid, hopefully, um, seeing this so often, or people going to the beach and coming across this as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention seeing them when you're older versus when you're younger because you're more aware of the issue. Because I remember I grew up kind of by the coast as well, and it's like little pieces of coral would like wash up, and I would always like pick them up and like collect them, and I'm like, this is so cool. And then I don't think I ever realized that they were supposed to be colored, like they were like white and bleached. So it's really interesting you bring up that point because it really does change your perspective versus if like younger kids always see them as white and bleached, they'll never really understand like what it's really supposed to look like and otherwise. But yeah, so our last question for today is I want to know what's your biggest science, like what's your science hot take? The most controversial thing, like let's get people fighting in the comments right now.
So I don't know if there's much to fight about, but my biggest science hot take is corals are one of the best animals in the world. I know this has been pure coral talk, but they really are. That's why we should all take care of them, protect them, support local legislation so we can protect them as well. So that's my biggest hot take. Um, yeah, as I mentioned, I don't know if there's a lot of argument against it.
Definitely, I feel like that a big consensus is like yes, coral are very important. But what would you say to people that don't think coral are important or don't really think much about them?
I would say, maybe take a step back and acknowledge that there is other communities that surround us that are not only human beings, and that a great part of why these communities are suffering the circumstances that they are is in big part because of our faults due to pollution, contamination, all of these issues that we are throwing out to the ocean that shouldn't be there in the first place. So the least we can do is acknowledge them and support them as much as we can because it's the less that we can do. They do so much for us and they don't really ask for much in return but respect. So yeah, it's just please take a step back, acknowledge that other beings also need our help and need our acknowledgement and our support as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Well, that was all of our core questions or official questions, but we do have one comment in the chat, and this is from L Case. What is your favorite non-coral organism? The smiley face.
Ooh, I have quite of a bit of obsession with axolotls. They are a salamander, but they are Mexican, such as myself, and they are really cute. Unfortunately, they are also endangered. So if you guys have the opportunity, go look up Mexican axolotls. As I mentioned, they're super cute. They're pink, most of them. They stay in their baby stages, and there is a lot of research being done on them at the moment. But big part of it, I hope, is its conservation. But yeah, I would say that's another one of my little obsessions with organisms.
It's funny because I don't think I've ever heard of an axolotl before we met, and you have like your little Nelly has like a little axolotl like stuffed animal, and I'm like I didn't even know what they were, but I love how you talk about them with a lot of passion.
I know someday I'll work with them.
Someday, yeah, we'll get there.
Yes.
Well, That wraps up all of our questions for Nelly today. Thank you so much for joining us, Nelly, and for everyone who is here watching the live stream. Before we officially end, we would like to encourage everyone to follow our social media channels on Instagram and Twitter, which are on the banner on the screen below, so that you can virtually join us on all of our adventures this summer. So tune in next Thursday at 11:05 a.m. to listen to our next series installation with Joseph. So thank you again. Thank you, Nelly, for being here, and we hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.